Quite a long time ago now, I created this rear valance that goes under the rear bumper, where the original sort of situation for the Mk2 Invader was basically the bodywork stopped just below the bumper, and there was nothing. In fact, you could see the spare wheel well hanging down. So anyway, that was done quite a while ago. But similarly, I'm looking at the front. Now the front has been quite torn and damaged from where the body was removed, with stuff like this going on over there. And so I have been working on a new, you might say, new front valance. And this is what I'm coming up with. Can I do it one-handed? Now this spoiler valance thing is actually designed for an MGB, which is slightly appropriate since a lot of the running gear on this car is actually MG anyway. Yeah, so that's kind of nearly it. But you'll perhaps have noticed this other section lying on the floor, and that is because I've had to cut it in half. So the spoiler needs to be wider than it is on an MG. Now this is the modified half, and it's going to have to be extended in the middle to make the two halves join up. But I've done this before on a previous project, which was a Reliance scimitar. In fact, I used the exact same spoiler type, and very nicely made it is as well. But by judicious cutting and joining, I think we should be able to come up with a fairly tidy front. A bit of a question mark going on regarding how this and that wheel arch join up. That's probably the most tricky section, but not bad. In fact, depending exactly how it's fixed on, it may or may not protrude further than the bumper. I'm not that fussed either way, to be honest. And here we have it, a little bit of a stage further on. It's fixed on, believe it or not, by one screw, which you might just see in the middle there somewhere. So it's pretty tightly fitting, even though it's not clearly quite right. Yes, so I've got some finessing to do, but considering this spoiler was not made for this car, that's not bad at all. So yeah, I reckon I'm probably, in terms of design, never mind execution, probably about 50% of the weight or more to getting that in there. So this is the two halves of the spoiler. This is the one that was attached to the car a second ago, and that's the screw hole that was holding it on. And this is the unmodified side. And you can see that, well, I've slimmed it down all the way across, and also over there it goes down and then up, as opposed to just up. So what I need to do, hopefully I can do this relatively quickly, is modify this section and cut this piece off here, and then we will have a mirror image of that half. Okay then. Right, this is almost all of what I've cut off. That process took me about 10-15 minutes, and it now fits roughly as well on both sides, but there's probably going to be a gap in the middle, so I'm just going to make a hole to match that one and offer it up. and I'll put these bits in the rubbish. And there we have it. As I said, a gap in the middle, which is 5 or 6 inches, and a slight tendency for this centre section to be pushed in compared to where I think it needs to be, so it needs to pivot out slightly. But yeah, I think the basic principle is proven. Yeah, quite a lot more work to do. I've got to solve the centre section, got to infill that, and I've got to solve this corner section, both sides, exactly where the wheel arch is going to flow. But yeah, and it kind of goes just inside the bumper, but if I solve the slight pivot, it needs to come back and it'll be probably just in line. So that's pretty good, I think, for now. You may be wondering what I'm going to do about the fact that this spoiler has got a great big gap in the middle of it. So the first thing I'm going to do, having got the correct alignment, is to screw this piece of plywood under it to join the two sides together. Now I'm actually using nuts and bolts rather than what you might possibly regard as more naturally using screws, wood screws. But that is because I can't get my screwdriver into the right place in here. So nuts and bolts it is. Okay, I'll take you down then. So first thing is to see how straight the front edge is, and yeah, that's pretty good, I think. And my joining sections of wood are there. So although because the screws are quite far apart, it can't move. So that's the although, it's only fixed on by 2 screws, I can now take it off and it will stay aligned. And so now we have a spoiler that fits the car, kinda, and we'll need to find a way, obviously, of joining the two halves together. That's the next task. So what I'm intending to do is to use this is PVC Foamboard that I've heated up and moulded around, basically moulded around the panel that's there. And what I'm going to do that is I'm going to use that, I'm going to laminate on the back of it and create a small section, small and thin to start with, section to go in here, which I will then obviously trim, put in more accurately, and then fiberglass in place and go from there. So heat gun was used to wrap it around the shape of the spoiler itself, as you can see, I think. And I shall just do a little bit of light fiberglassing, and I can see actually that the angle here, because I probably pushed it in a bit there too much. So what I think I shall do first is I shall just raise that section up slightly. I shall do that by use of the heat gun. So I shall, well, to be honest, that was probably enough on its own, doing that slight bit of warming. Alright, so I just need to, as I said, that will be my mould, and it will be, I guess, is that a male mould? Might be. Anyway, I'm going to laminate over the top of it, make a fiberglass piece, which I'll then drop into the hole. And as far as release agent is concerned, well, I haven't got any proper release agent. What I have got though is grease, and grease is what I have used. So let's get that very makeshift mould thing into a slightly better position and start laminating. So what I shall do, obviously I shall saturate this matting onto this, let's not call it a mould, it's more of a kind of former. I mean, you could almost have done it with pieces of flat fiberglass, but anyway, this looks like a promising method to me. And when I take the former off, which hopefully should be a doddle really, because this is very flat side to side, that is. It's very flexible actually, the PVC foam board, and of course I've greased it. So when I've done all that, I shall be left with a piece of fiberglass that is only a few inches wide, but it's the right profile to fit in the gap in the spoiler. Okay, that dried fairly quickly. Hello Jessica, hello Jasper. Right, as I was saying, yeah, so let's see how easily this does in fact peel off. Slightly more difficultly than I hoped. There we go. I think it was stuck right on the edge. There we go. Easy peasy lemon squeezy. So this, and that's quite a good surface as well, considering that's literally just come off a piece of foam board. We'll see how well that kind of lines up, shall we? Well, it's not bad actually. I think I'm going to have to take the, I can't quite cut that with the snippers. I think we are there or thereabouts, so I just need some strips to bridge that across, and we can move on to the next stage. So as you can see, I think the fiberglass has gone off, and I have removed all the bits of metal that I had fixing it together. It's a little bit flimsy, although not that bad. I've also ground down the, or feathered in the edges, so what I'm going to do now is put another layer of fiberglass, including where I couldn't before because the piece of wood that was there was in the way and the pieces of metal were in the way, so especially on the, what you might think of as the inside, and the outside will have to be smoothed off as well, obviously, but I shall do that right now. Well, that's not too bad. And finally, for now, so not finally, we have this, which unfortunately the car's got a wheel off at the minute so I can't look at it very well from the front. But yeah, it's kind of there or thereabouts. Now the other element which is open to, let's say, debate is what happens here. I've already cut the pointy bit off, so that's as far in as it's likely to go for now. But it all depends what's going to happen between the arch and the spoiler. That is my next little challenge, and I'm wondering if I can use my PVC Foamboard moulding technique again. So, what is the PVC moulding technique? Well, here is a piece of PVC Foamboard for a small bit, and I'm going to make it hot. And that's another reason for wearing gloves. It will be too hot to touch. Not red hot, but too hot to touch comfortably. Let's try. No, that's not soft enough. Okay, let's try that then. That is fairly promising. A little bit more on the side here, I think. Interesting. Okay, well, I've made myself a mould so that I can put it in here somewhere. Right, this is definitely heading in the right direction. So the idea I'm having is I can use this to make a mould for some fibreglass that I will then attach. This is looking really quite promising, because I can keep remoulding this. That makes it all the better. It becomes a bit like I am liking this. I think I'm going to take a little bit more off this. Can you see where I'm going with this? So this can become the mould. And then when I've made a piece that's like that, it can then be joined up. I think I'm actually going to have another go with this PVC foam board because the section that I made, this one, which goes round here, is, I mean, it's really good, but it would be so much better if it went all the way around to the front of the spoiler down here. So I've just taken delivery of a new piece of foam board, which I shall get out. This is an A1 sheet, and it's 3mm thick, I think. I've used this stuff for years. I even used it on the yellow car, which you might have seen now and again. I used it on the inner wheel arches because that was over 20 years ago now. And that was because even then it was obvious to me that the road dirt was going to get all over the engine bay. Anyway, so here it is. So this is how it comes. Quite stiff. I think they intend it for use with signboards, and you can cut it quite easily. So I just need a piece that's just a bit bigger than this one, and this looks like, if I cut out a piece about yay big, that will be quite good. Yeah, it needs to be about that much longer. Yeah, it's going to be slightly more than half of this width, unfortunately. There we go. Right, so what I'm going to do, you can cut it with shears, and you can cut it with a knife. But I find that if you cut it with shears, it tends to split sometimes, and so I'm going to use the heat gun again, and the heat gun kind of makes it kind of leathery. Okay. With any luck, I should be able to cut this quite easily now. It's important to wear gloves to do this job because it gets too hot to touch. So I'm going to try and form it around the edge of the wheel arch and also around the edge. They've both got a return edge actually quite similar to each other. Right, I'm going to show you. So it's not there yet, but it's getting there. So after a lot of massaging, this is what I've managed to make. So it kind of almost looks the part, doesn't it? But don't forget, this is a mould, not the real thing. Anyway, I realised that in fact, because the way that the bodywork goes inwards is not quite what I want, so I want to draw a line between here and here. So my original piece of PVC foam board is now going to be pressed into service to extend the mould like that, and that should do the job, I think. Now what I'm going to use to join the two bits of mould together is simply hot glue. So here is my piece, which goes on like that. But don't forget, this is not the piece, this is a mould for the piece. So adjustments will be possible, but this is going to reduce the amount of filling and so on that is necessary, I hope. So the next stage is to put some fibreglass in it, and before I do that I'm going to cover it with a layer of just ordinary grease to help it release the mould. So next day then, here it is, and yeah, the resin's all gone off. So the question is, can I get this thing out of the mould? And it's already looking promising. I wasn't expecting that to break off. A bit of levering might be in order. Here it comes. There. That's where I joined the two pieces together. There we go. Alright, so that's my piece. Now let's see how well it works on the actual car. Whoa. Yeah, that is not far off. I seem to have got a gap here, which I thought I'd filled in, but it doesn't matter. Yeah. Alright, so I can trim that up. Get rid of the hairy bits for a start. Yeah, I mean, this piece is it's a bit rough, I suppose, but rather than starting from scratch, it can always be finessed. Yeah. Anyway, let's offer it back to the work site. Oh yeah. Okay. So I need to attach it to the bottom of the spoiler. And I've got this gap that I need to fill in, which is slightly disappointing. So I've been trimming this a bit. It does suffer from the fact, obviously, this mould was pressed over the actual bodywork, and then this was moulded on the inside, which means it's a fraction smaller than you might have hoped or might have wanted it to be. But nevertheless, with a bit of trimming and so on, it is actually getting there. So I need to make sure it feathers in up here, and also as it joins on down there, and then I've got a hole which you probably can't see from where you are. There's a bit of a hole that needs to be bridged, so I'll probably going to fix something across the front of this to hold the two parts together and then take it off and do some more fibreglassing off the car. But I was able to shift the car backwards. The right hand front wheel had been off for a while due to me working on the wheel arch, inner wheel arch I should say, but that's a separate issue. So yeah, first time I've been able to move the car back so I can take a few steps away from it to see what it looks like. And this is what it looks like. So we have the MGB spoiler, which has been sectioned to make it wider in the front. Now it doesn't seem to have gone quite as straight as I would have liked, a bit of a depression in here, but we can sort that out, that's no problem. But it's looking alright, I think. And then we have this piece, of course, I made using the PVC Foamboard as a mould, and that will go on kind of like that, depending, is it like this or like that or what. This is what we need to work on, and I think also perhaps would be instructive is if I paint it black. Now eventually I'm pretty certain this will be body coloured, but just in terms of it looking consistent with itself, if you like, let's put some paint on it. Back in a moment. Okay, and this is what it looks like. I'm pretty pleased with that, to be honest. There's a little slight question in my mind whether the whole wheel arch needs to move outwards, but that is a distinct improvement compared to the sort of pinched in look. And possibly I could add something down here. In fact, that's not a bad idea. And that's how it's kind of constructed. Obviously there's a fair amount of work, not least the hole, that needs to be sorted out there. And yeah, here it dents in a little bit too much. And I think actually some of that is due to my fingers. I've actually pinched the PVC Foamboard a little bit too much and squished it in. So those are kind of finger marks, but it's near enough. I don't think it's worth redoing it or anything. I shall just solve that with a bit of body work. But yeah, I'm pretty pleased. So what I need to do now, because the spoiler itself is fixed on with only 2 screws, and this extra piece that I've made is actually fixed on with a blob of hot glue just in there. So that will come off fairly readily, but what I need it to do is to stay, this part, I want this to stay attached to that part if I take it all off. So I think I might need to put something, aluminium or something, to join the 2 sections together, and then I can work on the whole thing on the bench. Right, so I've got this metal strip on here. The alignment isn't quite as good as I would like, but it's probably good enough. And while I was putting it on, the blob of glue that was holding it up there actually came undone, so it's now completely fixed on with this aluminium strip, which has got 4 screws in it. 4 screws to stop it from pivoting on the screw, on one screw. So I mean, it's only very thin stuff. There's only on the edges of this fiberglass. There's only one layer, if that, actually. So I'm now taking this thing off. It's literally fixed on by 2 screws. There we go. So here we have it. And obviously this is the gap right in there that needs to be filled in. So I need to join this up as nicely as possible. So a bit of feathering of the edges is needed, together with more matting. And while we're at it, we'll improve this section as well. Okay then. I'm waiting for the fibreglass on the first side to go off, but even so, I thought I'd have a go at moulding the second side, at least the beginnings of it. So hopefully you can see where I've wrapped it round the wheel arch, and well, this time I'm going to try not to pinch it so tight, because one of the things that I noticed is that obviously when you put fibreglass inside there, it becomes tighter, too tight, a little bit too tight. So I'm leaving it relatively loosely fitting. So anyway, here we are, and I've just copied the rough shape. Obviously I will need the spoiler itself before I can finish this, but while I'm waiting for the fibreglass to go off, alright. See how soft that goes, and it re-hardens quite quickly actually. It's going stiff again now. Right, so that's in the ballpark. So I just need to get the spoiler down. Notice I've made this piece. This turned out to be in two pieces because I haven't made it go far enough up the arch on the other side, but now it's just, this piece is longer. Yeah, so I need the other spoiler, or the actual spoiler, to get any further of this. But anyway, that's about half done, and we'll wait for the fibreglass to go off. So here's my second piece, which I did have some trouble with the fibreglass going off, but anyway, here it is now. Let's see if I can get it out of its housing, so to speak. Looks like that's pretty easy actually. Okay, good. Alright, so there's my piece. Alright, let's see how this looks then. Yeah, nice and stiff. And well, for now anyway, this is how it looks. So this is all fibreglass rather than any of that PVC foam board anymore. It was moulded obviously using the PVC mould that I did with my fingers basically, and well, that looks pretty good. There's obviously a lot of detail work to do on it, but one of the first things of that is to properly join, rather than having strips of aluminium. Joining the two parts together, I now need to fix it with more fiberglass, actually. Well, that's a bit better. Much better shape on the front there now. It needs body working, smoothing out and so on. But I would say that this is now 90% done. Maybe more. I've got to decide whether to actually join it up with the bodywork. So that's something I haven't 100% decided. Let's put the lights on to illustrate the, if you like, before and after. So this is what the car looks like. I notice the slightly frilly edge to the front valance there. That's the before, going out to the wheel arches. And I shall put the thing on. And this is the after. Picking up on the arches there, front arch edge, whatever you call that. Now, of course, you might be wondering about these sticking out bits, but they're actually very flexible, so they can be screwed on quite easily. But yeah, I think that is, like I said before, needs some body work, but basically it's done. Yeah, maybe a new front picture is required. If you got as far as this, thanks very much for watching. And in case you haven't already, please do consider subscribing. That would be really encouraging for me. So catch you on the next one.